first time John noticed it, the air in his bedroom grew thick with the unmistakable, acrid scent of burning toast. It wasn't just the smell. It was the timing. Every single morning, his digital clock would flick to 6:07 a.m., and the odor would seep through the walls. Then came the other sensations. A cold, damp chill would settle over the room, completely independent of the thermostat. He'd lie there, paralyzed, listening to the faint, wet sound of something dripping in the corner of his ceiling. A corner that was always dry in the daylight. The house next door had been empty for years. The windows were boarded, the yard overgrown. No one could be making toast. Yet, the ritual was flawless. 6:07, the smell of scorched bread, the creeping cold, the phantom drip. A silent, senseless alarm clock from a place that shouldn't exist. This was the pattern for weeks, a dread so routine it became its own kind of prison. The mystery wasn't what would happen, but why it happened at all. And then, one morning, the pattern broke. The clock read 6:07, but the air was still. The smell was gone, replaced by a new, metallic scent, like ozone and old iron. For 3 decades now, that same acrid scent of burnt toast has permeated the air. Every single morning, without fail, the metallic whir and final, hollow thunk of the toaster echoed through the empty house. The charred, brittle remains always sat waiting, cold to the touch. A grim ritual no one performed. A primal dread took hold, whispering that this was not a memory, but a presence. Today, our town was trapped. Hundreds of the same child's drawing, each one identical, papering the walls of a dim room. The air carried the scent of old paper and something metallic, like cold iron. Then, with a sickening lurch, the hands snapped back to 6:05 a.m. We were ghosts haunting the same Tuesday, trapped in a pocket of reality stuck on a relentless loop. The terror wasn't just the endless repetition, it was the creeping dread of why we were stuck. The air grew heavy with the stale scent of ozone, a metallic tang that clung to the back of the throat. A primal dread took hold, a certainty that the reason for our loop was something far worse than mere chance. Oakridge, Ohio. A postcard town where the colors were unnaturally bright and the smiles held a fixed, plastic quality. A single, sleek, modern vehicle sat among the vintage cars, an intruder in the perfect frame. From the outside, Oakridge was flawless, the kind of picturesque scene you'd find on a state tourism brochure. But perfection has a scent, like ozone after a storm, and the faint, sweet tang of something decaying beneath fresh paint. But a closer inspection revealed unsettling details. Sarah Miller's flower stand perpetually displayed the same 12 sunflowers, never wilting, never changing. Old Mike, the barber, was forever frozen mid-snip on the same bewildered client. And the local radio station, WOKR, endlessly cycled the same 5 songs from 1992, a tinny, decaying soundtrack to the town's paralysis. I was the only anomaly in this fossilized world. John Miller had moved here for the quiet in 2022. Now, I was the only one who remembered a yesterday that was different. A metallic scent, like old coins and ozone, clung to the stale air. My fingertips traced the cold, damp plaster between the stamps, each one a perfect, terrifying echo. I watched Mrs. Henderson wave from her porch, her gesture an uncanny, mechanical repetition. My wife, Sarah, the town florist, insisted I was working too hard. Each morning at 7:45, she'd kiss me, wish me a good day, and ask about meatloaf for dinner. She asked that same question every single day. Every dawn brought the same date, October 9th, 1992. The calendar was frozen on the eve of the so-called Great Storm, the cataclysm that was meant to flood the old quarry and reshape the town's history. Yet in this relentless cycle, that pivotal storm never breaks. The air hangs thick with the scent of ozone and damp earth, a promise perpetually unfulfilled. The town remains trapped in a single, unchanging day, forever poised on the brink of a transformation that never arrives. The quarry waters stay still, and history holds its breath, suspended in an eerie, endless prelude. In the musty silence of the town library, John frantically scrolled through microfiche reels. Every front page he examined bore the identical, cheerful headline: Oakridge prepares for annual harvest festival, dated October 9th. A creeping dread settled in his gut as the absence became undeniable. No mention of a storm, no record of the cataclysm at all. The air itself seemed to thicken with the scent of old paper, and a deeper, unsettling wrongness. The threat itself became the anchor. He opened to a photo of the town square in 1992. In the blurry background, near the clock tower, was a faint, unnatural shadow. A tall, distorted figure that nobody else seemed to notice. John's eyes widened as the voiceover began. The first rule of the loop was simple. You couldn't leave. The highway out just curved back into town, an endless asphalt noose. The second rule was more insidious. The townsfolk resisted all change. If you tried to explain the loop, they'd just offer a vacant smile and shift the conversation. Their denial carried a strange, heavy weight in the air, like the scent of ozone before a storm that never breaks. Every attempt to escape only tightened the town's grip, leaving John with a creeping dread that this loop had no exit. But the third rule I discovered purely by accident. Driven by a simmering rage, he hurled the mug against the wall. It shattered with a sharp, percussive crack, scattering ceramic shards across the linoleum floor. As the last fragment settled, Sarah stepped into the doorway, her sharp gasp cutting through the sudden, heavy silence. The world began to stutter, reality flickering like a broken film reel. The light pulsed erratically, casting jagged shadows that seemed to claw at the walls. For a fractured moment, Sarah's face contorted into pure, primal terror, a mask of raw dread. Then, with a sickening lurch, everything reset, as if nothing had happened. A chilling smile spread across Sarah's face. Her voice was saccharine, dripping with false concern. "Oh, honey, you clumsy thing." The air grew heavy, thick with the cloying scent of ozone and something faintly sweet. "Let me get that," she whispered, her movements deliberate and silent as she cleaned the spill. The next morning, the mug sat whole again on the shelf, as if nothing had ever happened. That's what I understood. Powerful emotion creates a disruption. It causes a glitch in reality itself. And in those fleeting fractures, I finally saw them. They weren't my neighbors anymore, but the pale, stretched things lurking beneath their skins. They wore human faces like ill-fitting masks, and it hated being observed. A cold, metallic scent hung in the air as John, now gripped by a deep-seated dread, began documenting the glitches. Every whisper of movement outside his window now felt like a violation. Every evening, he'd watch the same bird trace its precise, unchanging arc across the sky. The air would flinch at exactly 4:18 p.m., with the sharp, metallic cough of Mr. Peterson's old car backfiring. He then witnessed the same boy, fall and scrape his knee on the same jagged piece of sidewalk. A sickening, sticky dread pooled in his gut as the day's final, identical piece clicked into place. The atmosphere grew oppressive, the golden sunlight now feeling like a prison. I found others. Chloe, a teenager who always sensed something was wrong with her flawless family. And Ben, a mechanic whose modern truck was the only object that ever gathered grime, that ever showed change. We were the imperfections in this seamless, repeating reality. The Harvest Festival marked the pinnacle of the repeated day. The town square, a cacophony of forced cheer that rang hollow. And the thing in the clock tower, the watcher, was starting to notice us. You could feel its attention. A sudden, heavy pressure in the air like a storm about to break. The scent of ozone and rot cut through the smells of carnival food. A cold, damp dread seeping into the warmth of the crowd. It was a slow, deliberate shift. The realization that the festival's music was now underscored by a low, wet scratching from the direction of the tower. The same band's tired melody echoed through the night, while the same pie was crowned champion once more. Later, John, Chloe, and Ben gathered at the edge of the old quarry, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and ozone. John's voice dropped to a raw whisper, the words seeming to sap the warmth from the air around them. "The storm is the key," he hissed, the dread in his voice palpable. "It's supposed to happen tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. What if we could make it happen?" "Ben, how do you make a storm?" "CHLOE, her voice dropping to a whisper, points to the quarry lake. CHLOE. The legend says a storm flooded this place. What if it wasn't water that needed to rise? Their eyes locked, a terrible realization crystallizing between them. The T, flood, was a metaphor. The quarry needed to be saturated with something the loop couldn't metabolize. Something visceral, raw, and utterly disruptive to its sterile order. Not water, emotion. The one thing the loop tried to smooth over. The terror, the grief, the rage of a day that was supposed to end in tragedy, but was frozen instead. We had to break the dam. John scrambled onto the bandstand and seized the microphone, silencing the music. A palpable stillness descended, thick and unnatural. Below, the entire crowd swiveled their heads toward him in one fluid, mechanical motion. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp earth, and not a single whisper broke the void. Their grins remained fixed, unyielding. John's voice shattered the stillness, raw and breaking. "Her name was Emily Carter," he cried, the words hanging in the damp, heavy air. "She drowned in the quarry on October 10, 1992. You all remember. You've been hiding from it for 30 years. Voiceover. I named the tragedy. I uttered what should have been left unsaid. And the loop, it didn't just break. It shrieked. The bell in the clock tower began to toll, but its rhythm was wrong. A chaotic, jarring clangor. There, atop the tower, the tall shadow from the photograph now stood, its form not holding still but rippling like smoke. A vortex of sorrow and terror descended upon the town, its oppressive weight settling in the marrow of every soul. The townspeople began to weep and wail, their bodies trembling as 30 years of suppressed memories flooded back in a violent tide. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and a palpable grief that had been buried for decades, now erupting without mercy. Sarah ran to John, her eyes finally clear, and through choked sobs she whispered the truth that shattered everything. "My little sister, I couldn't live with the memory, so we chose not to live at all." The entire town's anguish, a torrent of raw, pent-up human emotion, flowed toward that quarry like a river of despair. The dark water began to churn, then boil, as if the very depths were rejecting what we offered. The air grew thick with the scent of wet earth, and something metallic, like old blood. The watcher metallic shrieked. A sound like tearing fabric and shattering glass. This was no monster, but the manifestation of their chosen amnesia. Now starving as they finally felt their pain, with nothing left to feed on, its form began to unravel into the damp, chill air. The perfect, sunny illusion dissolved, revealing the real, gray, and grisly October afternoon. The cars on the street are now all modern. The people look older, tired, but real. They hold each other, crying, talking in hushed, broken tones. The roof is broken. We didn't slay a monster. The truth we accepted was more unsettling than any curse. Our town hadn't been afflicted by some ancient hex. We had made a wish, a desperate, collective plea whispered into the void, a wish to never feel that agony again. The air here is thick with a scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old iron. Every surface feels unnaturally cold to the touch. We traded our pain for them, and now, in the quiet, we hear the Christ scratching at the edges of our reality. And something, listen, John and Sarah stood at the quarry's edge. Now just a normal, gloomy lake. A small memorial stone for Emily rested there, its base covered in fresh, dew-damp flowers. John's voice was a low murmur. We got tomorrow back. Real, messy, unpredictable tomorrow. Sarah and I are working through it now. The grief has become tangible, but so has the healing. A metallic scent, like old rain on iron, hangs in the air as we confront what we've lost. Every tick from the tower above feels like a measured step toward acceptance, or a reminder of time stolen. The process is slow, damp, and real. A chilling touch of truth in the quiet. The clock reads 3 p.m. Its hands advance one minute. A normal, beautiful scent. But when the air grows still, and the scent of charred toast drifts on the breeze, a question whispers from the shadows of memory. Did we truly break free, or did we just negotiate a larger cage? The camera pushes in slowly on the quarry's inky surface, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and stagnant water. In the final frame before the screen fades, the reflection doesn't show the gray sky. It shows a perfect, sunny October night. And how would you know if it changed? The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and something metallic, like old pennies left in damp soil. You wouldn't notice the shift in the shadows, or the new, sticky dampness on the wall that wasn't there before. You'd just feel a deep, gut-level wrongness, a quiet horror that paralyzes you as you realize the world has been rewritten while you weren't looking.